One thing the groundwater is good at doing in certain environments is creating caves and the associated karst topography. So this occurs when there's limestone in the ground. And if you remember, limestone is a chemical sedimentary rock that reacts with hydrochloric acid and also gets dissolved by acidic water, which we find in rainwater. And also that rainwater, as it infiltrates into the ground, remains acidic for a while. As this occurs, we tend to get big chunks of limestone that are dissolved away in order to form these empty spaces in the rocks called caves. And associated with these caves, as the water drips through the caves, we get these types of formations over here, which are stalagmites and stalactites. So the stalagmites are growing up from the floor, the stalactites are growing down from the ceiling. And they're essentially limestone precipitating in this empty space, which used to all be limestone, but was dissolved away to create the cave, and then the water dripping through the cave creates these features. So if we look at an area where we have a lot of limestone and we have rainfall that's able to infiltrate into the ground, we would start getting these caves developed. And at first these caves are filled with water, and so they are there, and they can collapse in on themselves, but at least they're not filled with air. But if the water table is lowered, as is shown in this bottom slide here, now these caves that used to have water in them just have air in them. They're more likely to collapse in. And if we were at the surface here, what we would see is sort of these pockmarks, these isolated lows in the terrain that are called sinkholes. So a sinkhole is a collapse feature where there was a cave, the cave collapsed in on itself, and what we see on the surface of the earth is just this isolated low, this closed depression. One area where this occurs a lot is Florida. Florida is underlain by a lot of limestone. This area here shows where all the limestone is in Florida, which is almost the entire state. But the area that we're most concerned with is the areas in the darker brown here, because this is where the water table, the top of the aquifer, is close to the surface of the earth, and where this sort of dissolution is taking place off the limestone. And this can result in collapse features. These collapse features are not as big as a state, but they can be as big as a building or two. This shows a collapse feature here in Florida, and you can see some buildings and cars here for scale. This entire area has just collapsed in on itself. These areas can be hard to detect beforehand because you would have to know what the entire underground cave system looked like under the ground in order to even predict where there might be structural instability. So it's sometimes difficult to predict where these sinkholes are going to occur.